For USCFootball.com, I'm Keely Eure here with Shotgun Spratling for instant analysis of USC's 72-58 win over the Oregon Ducks. Now, Shotgun, we were wondering how USC was going to respond after its loss to Arizona on Saturday. Well, they responded pretty well, especially in the first half of this game. I know it was a tale of two halves, but it was a pretty good response from USC today.
I mean, if you're one of those people that were wondering, do I jump on this bandwagon? Am I jumping off right now? I think you need to realize this is a team that can do some damage in March. And I think that's what we learned about this group today. Short week, not having a lot of time to prepare for this team. Andy Enfield and the coaching staff, he reiterated it again today in the post-game press conference, but also the post-game TV interview that he had. They weren't very happy about having to switch up the game plan and everything, especially because Oregon does some different things. The way that they play their matchup zone, the way that they attack and pressure the ball, that's something you want to have a little bit extra time to prepare for. Didn't have that this week. So, it shows you even a little bit more about this group, that the way they responded was kind of their backs were against the wall a little bit. People were kind of discounting them. They dropped a couple spots in the top 25. Some voters dropped them out of the top 25. And they came out and they thoroughly dominated Oregon the first 10 minutes of the game. I mean, they didn't let Oregon didn't make a field goal until 8 minutes into the game. They started 0 for 12 from the field. So it wasn't just that they came out on fire and were knocking down some shots and Oregon was doing the same thing. No, they were on fire on both ends of the court. And it was everything that they weren't doing against Arizona is what we saw from them, especially in the first half, but throughout the entire game, just attacking the ball much more. They weren't being passive. When Andy Enfield yelled at the bench soft, it was on a rebound where, Drew Peterson didn't really go hard after it in the Arizona game. This game, you saw Ethan Anderson flying across the lane to come in at your rebounds on the offensive end. So, I think that they really attacked the areas where they were struggling at in that Arizona game. And that tells me a lot about this group. They didn't falter. This is the time of year when you have things really rolling for you and something bad happens and, hey, the scheduling is not going your way and you go, oh, woe is me. And some teams, start to falter a little bit. This team said, oh, you want to schedule this game? Fine, let's go out and show it. And they proved themselves against Oregon in this game, I think. And it's a big win for them as far as the standings as well, because Oregon, they were equal with them as far as losses, and they can make up some ground with USC being idle early in the week next week, and Oregon's going to play a couple extra games. So this was a big win. This sets them up in prime position now, back in first place by half a game over UCLA. UCLA will make that game up next week when they're playing against Oregon. But, this is an opportunity for USC to jump back ahead. And they push Oregon back down 2.5 games. So now USC has a half game lead on UCLA, and they have a 2.5 game lead on Oregon and Colorado going forward.
You mentioned the Trojans on fire. There was a specific Trojan on fire in the first half. Taj Edey almost outscored Oregon itself at the half. What did you take away from his performance?
Oh, his the first three threes of the game just to start the game out with 9-0. USC starts the game out 15-0 in this game. They had a 16-point lead by the time Oregon made that first field goal, 8 minutes into the game. But Taj Edey was carrying them early. He was knocking down shots. I think he knocked down 5 3-pointers in the first half, and it wasn't the first three, he got nice, good open looks, but then Oregon was playing him really tough. And one of them was a terrific play. The ball gets knocked away. He has a dribble drive, step back three, and the ball kind of gets caught on his hip, and that's like, okay, there's no chance that one's going in. Splash. He was knocking down stuff from everywhere. Had 21 points in the first half. Oregon scored the final bucket of the first half, or else he would have outscored them in the first half. So he was on fire. Now, I am a little bit concerned. He's done this multiple games in a row now, and someone asked him in the press conference, when's the last time you caught fire like that? And he was like, I don't know, 2 weeks ago against Washington State. Does that count? When he had 29 points and a lot of points in the first half. He had 15 in the first half of the Arizona State game. But I'm a little bit concerned about his second half performances. And I think part of it is these have been much more physical games the last couple of games. And he has that slight build. So maybe they got to figure out a way to be able to save his legs a little bit, save him from some of the contact he may take that may wear him down as the game progresses. That's something that happened earlier in the season when they played UConn, when they didn't have Ethan Anderson. He was asked to protect the ball a lot. And, late in the game, he wasn't able to knock down a big shot in that one. Arizona game, he had an opportunity opportunity to knock down a big shot late to potentially, cut into that lead, couldn't hit it. So, he has knocked down several big shots for them this season. But I think as you're going down the stretch of the run of the season, and the fact you're playing 3 games this week, you're playing multiple games next week, going to the tournament, you could play multiple games in a 2 or 3 day span. I think they got to be cautious of how much they're using him, and try to get him a little bit of extra breather. And when you can, just have him not being the one bringing up the ball, so that he's not just, that constant contact, someone defending you. So that's something I am a little bit concerned about, but he has been on fire for them, and it's been huge for them, because when someone knocks down those first couple of shots, it opens everything else up for everyone else. And I think they were, they had hit 6 threes in the first half, or, actually it was more than that. He had 5 and they hit a couple more. They were, shooting terrific from the outside. In the second half, not as much, but, they were able to carry what they did in the first half. They were 7 of 11 in the first half, ended up 3 of 10 in the second half. So need to knock down a couple more down the stretch to make this not a little bit of a hesitant game in the last few minutes. But, the way they came out on fire told you so much about this group, and Tajidi was leading the way.
We've alluded to the second half that USC played. They went a little cold. I know Infield, though, reminded people, hey, this is a good Oregon team. They won 5 games coming into this game. They were going to make adjustments. What do you take away from that second half from USC? Do you make it as big of a deal as some people might have?
No, I mean, USC only scored 29 points after scoring 43 in the first half. So, hey, they didn't have the same output as they did in the first half, but they were only outscored by 7 points. And when you have a 21-point lead, that's not that big of a deal. Now, Oregon did cut it down to 10 points at one point, but what I was impressed with in that second half is that was with 4:59. They hit make a shot to cut it to 10 points, and they've gone on a little run to get to that point. What happens after that? They don't make a field goal. The last 5 minutes of the game, Oregon did not make a field goal. So that tells you a lot that USC was able to lock back in. If they had, kind of got a little lackadaisical, if that was the case, they locked back in. They finished off the game strong. Max Agbunt-Polo knocks down a big 3 as the shot clock is winding down. It was kind of a dagger with about 3.5 minutes left. So that was a big shot for them. And the way they finished it off, I mean, they start the game, Oregon misses their first 12 shots. They end the game, they missed their first 5 or 6. I mean, their last 5 or 6. In between, though, Oregon shot something like 67%. So there were some things that USC could still clean up, and that's part of the process of, facing the team, and not having much time to prepare for them. I think that was a little bit of that. But they did a really good job on Eugene Omoruyi, who's their leading scorer, Oregon's leading scorer. Now, he's a 6'6" guy, and he couldn't get those mismatches that, he normally gets against some of the smaller guards and posts that can't guard him on the outside. USC held him to 3 for 10. He and Chris Duarte, their 2 leading scorers, who came in averaging both over 17 points, combined for 20 points. So they did a really good job on those 2 guys to slow them down, and I think that's a big part of the reason they were able to win this game.
You mentioned Drew Peterson. He was kind of in a funk as of late, but it seemed like tonight was the game where he got back into the groove. What did you see from him tonight?
Yeah, Andy Enfield actually made a lineup switch. Now, there were 2 things he switched. One, Isaiah Mobley was not active tonight. He was not dressed, so Shafez Goodwin started for him. No big deal there as far as, no surprise there, I guess, as far as Shafez Goodwin starting in his place. But Ethan Anderson starts in place of Drew Peterson. Ethan Anderson obviously has not started since coming back from the back injury. Drew Peterson had started every game this season. So what was the deal there? Well, Andy Enfield said, Drew's not been playing well. Well, this lit a fire under his tail, and Ethan Anderson as well. Both of them, I thought, played great in their roles. Drew Peterson, he checked in within a couple minutes of the game, and USC went to a 4-guard lineup. They needed those 4 guards to protect the ball and bring it up against the pressure that Oregon was bringing against them. And both those guys were fantastic. Drew Peterson get his 3rd double-double of the season. Both those guys, again, talking about the rebound, the defensive rebounding that they were, the guards in particular, all of them were attacking the glass with a lot more fervor this game than they did last game against Arizona. And, USC was able to out-rebound Oregon 39-26 in this game. Drew Peterson had 11 of those. He had a double-double, 15-11. He had 4 assists. He had 2 steals. Ethan Anderson, if he shot a little bit better, he was 2 or 9 from the field, but if he shot a little bit better, he had an outside chance at a triple-double in this game. He had 6 points, 7 rebounds, and 8 assists, and most importantly, 8 assists with only 1 turnover. So USC got some great production of both those guys. They both responded well to a lineup switch. We'll see if it continues down the road.
Looking ahead, USC is going to go to Colorado on Thursday. You mentioned Isaiah being hurt. 1, are you concerned about that for the Trojans? And 2, what do you expect for USC in Colorado. I know multiple players mentioned the altitude, and that's going to be a factor there.
Yeah, anytime you go on the mountain road trip, there's an adjustment with the altitude. And again, that's something with Taj Edey, the body wearing down, just not having the legs when you jump shots late in a game. That's one of the reasons why I'm thinking ahead about, protecting him and saving him, getting a couple of extra spare minutes of rest time if you can. And the way that Ethan Anderson and Drew Peterson played, that would allow you to do that. So it's great to see for them in that potential of being able to do that. Going to Colorado is a huge game. Colorado's already lost 6 games in the Pac-12. USC's at 3 losses. So Colorado basically has to win out if they want to get up to the top seed, with USC. So if USC can beat them, that'll basically eliminate them from contention and push their opportunity to win the Pac-12 title even further in advance. But, Colorado's going to come in thinking it's a must win, and they beat USC earlier this season. So Isaiah Mobley being out is a big deal in this game. Not as much against Oregon. Oregon only had 1 player taller than 6'6", I believe. They lost Dante Nafali earlier in the season. It was their big man down low. So they're playing with a smaller lineup pretty much the entire season. Colorado, on the other hand, have 2 bigs and 2 guys that are traditional post players in effect with Jariah Horn and Evan Batty. Evan Batty's a big body down low, and Colorado was able to beat up Evan Mobley down low, using the lower halves they have to force him off the block, to also force him to defend with his lower body and stuff. So, getting Isaiah Mobley back is much bigger for that game, I believe, just because of the matchup there with them having 2 post players. And Jariah Horn is a guy that can step out. He's more like the Mobley brothers, but you need 2 guys to be able to defend those 2 bigs down low. So I think it's really big to get him back and just to have another body down low, because Chavez Goodwin can get in foul trouble when you try to play him extended minutes.
Mm-hmm. All righty, Shotgun, any final thoughts before we wrap this one up?
Hey, this team, it was played their best basketball we've seen all season in that first half. It wasn't just that they were knocking down some shots, but they played together, and that was really impressive. Not just that they came back and responded. That was definitely impressive, but the way that they responded. They attacked all the areas where they were deficient against Arizona, and they played their best basketball, sharing the basketball. At one point, I think it was 10 assists on their first 14 field goals. So they were playing really well, passing the ball, working the ball around the perimeter. It wasn't just one pass and then, hey, I've got an open look, I'll take a shot. It was, let me find someone else who's even more open than me, and maybe they're a better shooter, whatever it may be. They were really working the ball, moving around really well against Oregon. So I was really impressed with how they played offensively in the first half, but also the way they attacked those deficiencies from the Arizona game as well.
Yep, quite the bounce back for the Trojans. That's going to wrap it up for Instant Analysis. For Shotgun Spratling, I'm Keely Eure. For more, check out USCfootball.com.